Hello, we're going to take a look at Panic at Station 2891 here. Now, unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, I have recorded 3 videos for this that have all had to get canned and redone, and because of where I was in the process that I've developed here, this feature film was essentially recorded backwards, meaning this that I usually do first is actually the last one. So I just cleaned up the last plays, and then got it all set up to redo just to talk about here. So it's going to be a little weird because I might talk in a different tense, like I'm talking about the past, which you will see as the future of upcoming plays. So what is this? We have Final Girl Panic at Station 2891. This is, again, another amazing expansion for Final Girl. Expansion's a rough word because you have to have at least one of them to play the game. So feature film is what they call it, but the way it's categorized by Board Game Geek and in a lot of people's brains is expansion. So we have 2 Final Girls, of course, just like we always do in every pack, in every feature film, Kate and Yuki. And Kate has only 4 hit points and needs to rescue 6 or save 6 victims, which is really tough. We'll get to why that's so hard here when we talk about the location, that you probably can't see it very well where it is now, but there's only one place to escape people from right here. And Yuki here, 6 hit points, but only needs to rescue 4 people. What a beast, right? Now, Kate's special power, she suddenly has a new maximum hit point of 7, and while she's at full health, she gets to roll 1 extra die on horror rolls. Right, that's amazing. And then for each additional victim saved, she heals 2 hit points. That's fantastic. Yuki here is just a brawler. Once per game, you may play a copy of the guard card as though it was in your hand. That's wonderful, right? I mean, you just, boom, right there. Don't have to spend the 2 time on it. Only once per turn, though. And her benefit to rescuing additional victims is -1 horror, which is, my favorite thing ever. But again, we're going to talk about how hard it is to rescue or to save victims on this map. And this little card is going to be a big part of that when we get there. So I'm going to put this over here so we don't forget to talk about it at that point in time. Let's talk about the organism. Now, right away, you're going to notice how bizarre this board looks. There's nothing on it. It's just an empty board, right? That's, how does that work? Does that make any sense? There's a short bloodlust track on there, and it says you start with 5 horror and 3 spots for dark powers, minor dark powers, and that's it. You have nothing else on this board, right? Well, that's because this is an absolute nightmare. The way this plays, you put these out here, these are exposed victims, and we don't know, and if you've ever seen the movie The Thing, you know exactly where this is going. We don't know who's infected. We don't know, and they don't know. And so it has this box has a fantastic mechanism wherein the 3 infected people, you use these 2 that come with the feature film and the red meeple that comes with the core box. You treat these guys as victims. So let's get into the deep rules here and see what's going on. So the killer here, no one knows where those things came from, but it started right after our research team arrived. I think one of the dogs was infected, but John, rest his soul, told me he thought the chemist was performing strange experiments back home. All right, so there you are with that. Now, the rules have a little bit of a weird setup to them. Okay, so first of all, you have to, when you're flipping your setup card over, you have to randomly place these 3 meeples, right, the black, the gray, and the red one, in as if they were victims. So you just replace 3 yellow ones with victims, okay? Or 3 yellow victims, rather, with these special victims. They're not special victims, that's an actual thing in the rulebook. These exposed victims, I'm sorry. So these guys were exposed. Now, there is no, you can see there it says nothing is placed on the K space during setup as the killers are amongst the victims, which is, it's such a good system. But what that means is, and you'll see why here in a minute, is when you have a setup card out, the K becomes the laboratory, and you have this little token to just denote a lab, right there. So you have a laboratory on any map you're on. There's an actual laboratory space right here on Station 2891, but for every other location, you would have to create a lab, and that's how you do it. All right. So then you have test kit items that you place face up on top of the item decks, right? So they give you 4 of these. You have 4 of these test kit cards, and they're basically like extra things at the location you'll be searching that you can pick up if you successfully search. So if you successfully search, you can grab a test kit and a rocket launcher, or whatever it is. Now the test kits are integral to the way this plays because remember, it said the killers are hidden amongst the victims, right? So we know who they are as the player, but the final girl has no idea, and mechanically you can't do anything about it. You can't just go kill somebody, right? You can't prove that they're the killer. So then you have these test result cards, which when you test a killer, right? So let's say you have a test kit and you go to some random place or the lab, right? The lab will let you do it no matter what. Like no matter where you are, if you're in a space with one of these guys, you can, boom, pull out the test kit, and then you flip over a test result card, and let's say it's this, and it says this person's safe. So this person is now, this meeple, let's say, is out of the game. So you can take that and just get rid of it. That person's not here anymore, not a threat, and replace that person wherever you are on the map with a yellow, normal victim that you can save. That's good news. Because the way this is designed is you could be fighting 1, 2, or 3 killers on this map. In the scenario here where we said one was safe, we know now that we're only going to be fighting at most 2 killers. That gets discarded from the pile from the game. Now you're down to 2. You have safe and assimilated. So we shuffle it up, right? You don't know, you don't know, you don't know. You pull your next card out, and the guy is assimilated. This tells you now that is a killer who starts taking normal killer actions. And then, right, you would flip this card over and it says, that's the horrific creature that you're fighting. Boom, that's them. And you can see they're different. So you could have all 3 out here to fight at the same time. And when you flip them, Bloodlust could have been going up this whole time. You flip them over, and of course, you then have to perform everything that happens in order. And since this is being recorded after I've got the plays recorded, I still have the question of, I don't know. When it says this killer panics, I assume that means they move 1 space, not 2, right? Like, because in the rule book, the core rule book, it just says 1 space for final girl and victims. It never addresses a killer panicking. So I assume it's just 1 space. And you can see, this gets out of hand right away. Like if you start way up here, or up here even, it's a short track, and to have 3 killers with such a short track, that's nasty. Now what happens, if you flip over another guy later on and the Bloodlust is already up here, well, guess what? You get to do all that nasty stuff too. It's crazy. But take a look at how awesome these guys are. And real quick, the last note on this assimilated card, if you flip it over and somebody's assimilated, you don't toss it out of the game like you do a safe card. You shuffle that back in. And so the next person you test, you've got to flip another card, right? So that's how you could be fighting from 1 to 3, because this card stays in this pile. And so at some point you will be down to 1 card, right? So then we have, right, look at how nasty these guys are, right? And they're all different. They are all different. Let's take a good look at these guys. Look at that. There's just 2 of them. Right? I guess I could probably fit all 3, but we might have some glare. Yeah, not too bad. But you can see that, one of them seems to be a real beefcake, 7 hit points there, and then on the killer action, they heal. The other one just runs around all crazy on the killer action, just panics, and the other one just swinging in their space and just stabbing around. But of course, that means then that they all have to draw, a terror card at some point, and adhere to all the bad stuff that happens. So each killer would be then doing things, in the little black part down here. Now, they have done a great job of, well, what happens if I want to turtle and I don't want to expose any of these people and show who's actually, a monster, and I just want to rescue victims? Guess what, buddy? That doesn't work, because there's an awful lot of terror cards that start with that line. If there are no mutated organisms in play, panic all exposed victims and raise the horror, right? There's all kinds of terror cards like that do this nasty stuff in here to you, right? And so many of these, like here's another one, right? That one raises just Bloodlust if you just don't have any. This one discards the test kit, so you're trying to get here, here, or here, and all of a sudden you're halfway there and the test kit disappears and somebody dies. It's insane. Look at this mess. Hit and run. If there's no mutated organism in play, +1 horror, and discard a random action card from your hand. Let me tell you, that has bit me more than once. I have since played this about 6 or 7, I think 6 whole games and 1 half game. It was just a mess. Something, I don't know, didn't work out. Have you seen how disgusting it is? Right? So there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on here. Look at this card. Are we alone? Oh man, yeah, it gets wild. And then take a look at this. Feast your eyes on the minor dark powers. Just extra movement, extra hit points, take damage. Let's see, when you deal one or more damage to this mutated organism, you take a damage. And what's really cool is that whole text on the top of these is all the same. And basically, it just accounts for what to do if there's no organism out there. You would just put it in play, and the first one that you expose then gets that power, right? And you could, just stack them up on one. So it can get really nasty really quick. It's wild. And even worse, and I don't know, I feel like this must be one of the strongest killers, right? There's three, I don't remember where my fourth one came from. I don't think it came with it because it's a finale card. So it probably came with the box, the extra box I got from Kickstarter. Anyway, these cards will flat out kill you. They all have the same or very similar text to them, text on them. When this card is revealed, any remaining exposed victims are immediately assimilated, right? So if you've just been screwing around and letting bloodlust, fly up the track, you're just going to flip them all at once, which is horrible, all these guys, and pull them all at once. If there is only one mutated organism in play, you must discard 2 action cards at the beginning of the killer phase. If you cannot, you have been assimilated and lose the game. And, this one says... if there's only one in play at the beginning of the killer phase, let's see here, and you are in its space at the beginning of the killer phase, you're assimilated and lose the game. This one, if there's only one mutated organism in play, raise 2 horror at the beginning of the killer phase. If the horror level is ever above 6, you have been assimilated and lose the game. Right? They are crazy. And the epic finale, if you are ever in the same space as a mutated organism that has full health during the killer phase, you have been assimilated and lose the game. Ugh, I mean, they're so brutal, right? I want to point out, is this the one? The organism one? No, it's not. It's this one. Okay, so we'll get to that in a minute. All right, so here's the little black meatball. I just want to keep all that together. Now, as far as Station 2891 goes, the absolute first thing I have to point out is that there's a Google document FAQ out there, and this is the section for Panic at Station 2891. And I urge you to go read this, because I screwed up at one of my plays and didn't read the first one. Basically, this card is correct. This card, so play off of this. Do not use the PDF on their website. And I checked today, right? And the PDF is still screwed up on their website. It has incorrect definitions for this section right here that tells you what an outdoor space is, what a main building is, and what a hallway. Like they just kind of messed up a little bit. And at one point in one of my plays, you'll see I didn't panic a guy in this room because this told me not to. But then I have since fixed it, you can see, and I added a little errata section there where they screwed up the definitions, and that did make a big difference. So, was there anything else on the killer phase I missed here? Not really. Not really. Let's talk about there is the important thing is right there, actually. So exposed victims, you can carry these people around like a normal victim. They act like normal victims. You just walk around with them, right? You can't save them. They can't be replaced with special victims, like if you flip an event card and suddenly they become, the chef or whatever. You can't do that. They will always panic during the panic phase. That is like the most important thing to remember, is every panic phase, you got those 3 guys running around just doing whatever. It's really cool because it kind of makes the little station, the outpost, feel alive. And then if they're killed by a game effect, you just flip a test card right away, and it's either been a saved victim and then you raise the bloodlust because somebody died, or you find out it's one of these guys, right? So that's really all there is to it for that. That's kind of the main bit here. The story for Station 2891, Cole doesn't begin to describe it. There ain't really no word for it, to put it plainly, ma'am. You bundle up. If you go outside at night, you never, ever let go of the guideline. Other than that, we'll mostly be working all the time. That's what I imagine the facilities manager sounds like. So here is the facilities, Station 2891, right? So you've got the supply closet to search, the tool shed to search, and the commander's hut to search. You have 1 evacuation point, which makes sense. That's the helicopter landing pad, and everything else is just kind of a nightmare. There's a long hallway here, which is kind of cool. The game does recommend you use those little tiles that come with the core box for that hallway and that long hallway. You can see they even put little symbols there to make, remind you. And there's a good reason for that I ran into, is I kept not being able to see the panic numbers because I had so many meeples out here, and I would misread it. I would glance at it and be like, oh yeah, you only need a 4 to 6 to run into the rec room. Well, if you're in this hallway, a 4 goes that way, not rec room, because I'd have a meeple hiding over the 6. So just a kind of a dumb mistake. Otherwise, the rules should be okay. Place the helicopter card near the board, so you have a helicopter to get out of here. This looks like that. When you get 3 meeples here onto the board, well, 1, 2, or 3 of the victims here to the escape chopper, you can, according to the FAQ, what does the helicopter icon, no, right above that, can victims in the exit space be placed on the helicopter card without the final girl being present? Yes. So if you can get victims here, and you have the little helicopter, oh, I don't know where it is, oh, right here. The little helicopter is here, and you've got some victims, you can say, okay, I'm going to take these, this one victim that's hanging out here, and put them on the helicopter, and the helicopter is going to take off. And then you put that on the sheet, somewhere in that one space, and you haven't actually rescued this person yet. You have an action card called Fly Faster that lets you move the helicopter. So if you ran 2 successes, you can go 1, 2, and now this is green. You can't see it probably, but that's a green spot. So now you've rescued this person. You put them on your final girl card and get the bonus. But then this thing has to fly back here to the station. Once it gets back, you can just go ahead and put the token right back on there for free. It doesn't cost like a helicopter point. It's there, okay? The thing of it is, so you're going to have this on the board, that one on the board all the time. The thing of this is there's only one of them, right? So it's kind of, you got to really get it moving when you've got people on there. It does only cost 1 time point though, so that's not so bad. Now, other stuff that can go wrong here. There are, now, while I'm talking about it, the terror cards all move the helicopter 1 space for you as well. Unfortunately, there's only 8 of these, and there's like 16 of the terror cards for a killer. But for a location here, we have 8. So you can see something like that at the bottom of them. It says cause frostbite and then move the plane forward or the helicopter forward 1 time. So every single one of them does that same thing, right, at the very bottom. So look at how crazy some of these are, though. Just wow, look at that. The frostbite tokens, if you look at the bottom right here, frostbite icon means that you, each victim, and each enemy in an outdoor space gain a frostbite token or lose 1 health if they already have frostbite. During each upkeep phase, discard all frostbite tokens for anyone indoors. Now, this is clarified at the bottom of the FAQ here if you need to read that again, but basically, if you've got a guy out here and a card like this comes out, you apply frostbite to them. So you put a little token on there, but that's it. Nothing else happens. Don't worry about it. Let's say on a future turn, this guy winds up indoors. They're still frostbitten. Then upkeep phase happens. Oh, they're inside, so they can take this little token off because they are no longer frostbitten, right? That's what happens during the upkeep phase. Let's say, however, they're still out there, and this card comes up, and boom, you go through the stuff, pull 2 event cards. I'm sure that works out really well for you. At the very bottom, you then have frostbite again. That person now takes 1 point of damage, meaning they die. Boom. Dead person, up the bloodlust, possible panic situation going on. And you've got quite a few of these little bloodlust tokens here frostbite tokens to deal with, keeping track of frostbite and whatnot. So yeah, those get pretty crazy, but it is nice that they do move the helicopter by themselves, assuming you've been lucky enough to shuffle them into the deck at all, right? Now, what else do we have here, right? This is the lab token, so remember you can put this lab anywhere that you need the lab, so that'll go over there. What else do we have here? How to save victims. Well, we covered that. We covered frostbite. Okay, the 2-way radio and the ski dozer. So there is a ski dozer icon, that thing there, and you get to choose whether you start it here or there, basically. It's either of the spaces right outside of those places. So you can kind of put it wherever you want. At any outdoor space that is adjacent to a search space. Yeah, so there's really only those 2 spaces. But you need the keys, and there's an item card in here somewhere that say keys to this. Here they are, ski dozer keys, right? So you need the ski dozer keys, and they're really cool. So if you get the ski dozer, you can use it to drive from one place to another. Any outdoor space you want, you can see you can only use it twice, though. So a good thought might be, wow, I'm way over here, but I need to get to the commander's hut to get a test kit or a great item that's over there, right? Like a weapon or something. Or you can go to this spot with it, which is outside of the lab, and use it to crash through the wall, making this an adjacent space, right? So you could then get people in and out of the lab right by the door. Really, really awesome. I think that's really cool. I really like this whole like map manipulation thing some of these have for some reason. I think that's really cool. So that's pretty neat. There's also an event card in here where the lab explodes. I don't know where it is. Right there. There's been an accident in the lab, and it also can cause that token to come out. So depending on how lucky you are, that may happen. Now, you do start the game with, and this is really neat too, this feels to me like something they had to play test to find out. You start the game with a two-way radio with 4 uses on it, right? You can spend 1 time to burn a use to move any one victim 1 space once per round, right? But you can use... You could use all 4 on 1 round, but only 1 victim can move 1 space per... No, that's not right either. So 1 victim can only be moved once. So you can move 4 different people 1 space on the same round at the cost of 4 time, though, right? So it's one time, right? You can't move a victim more than once on a single turn. And what's cool is if you go through these cards, there's another one in here, so you can find it. What else is awesome is you have... The dogs, they are absolute lifesavers. There's 2 knives, a revolver, a list of what's in the places. So if you find the list of things card, you can actually well, depending on, do you have to roll for it, I think? Yeah, you roll. Then you get a list of what's in, like, let's say the supply closet, and you found that thing in the commander's hut. Then you get to know what all the items are, keep them, in the supply closet. There's flamethrowers, which will have, H-A-L-V-E, have the damage, right? Cut it in half. Or have the life points, I mean, rather. Some lucky dice, a first aid kit, the axe that we know and love, 2 damage for a melee. Yeah, here's another 2-way radio. There's roller skates. This is cool. When resolving movement, do not count hallways as spaces. Move 1 fewer space when starting your movement outdoors. So those are pretty cool. There's some neat stuff in here. The crucifix, discard to ignore any horror level increase or to end an enemy's movement. And then there is also there's 2 flare guns. May only be used with weak attack. If damage is dealt to the killer, -1 horror. Alternatively, this may be used when outdoors to move all victims that are outdoors 1 space closer to you. And there are 2 of those. So that's really cool too. All kinds of neat stuff. The setup cards, they look normal. They just have a space for the K. So, in this case, if you had a different killer, that's what they would go. In this scenario, no killer starts there, right? So what is that called? That is a nice stew. Good morning. R&R. Clear the grounds and quitting time. So there's, nothing amazing or anything about these setup cards. I just like looking at them because I always think the names are cool. So there's all that, and really, other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward. The lab is here in the center. That's the place where you would go to be able to test a bad guy, right? So if you're with an exposed victim, remember, they're victims. They will follow you, so you can take them to the lab. Then you get to use the lab for free to flip a test card. So there's that. And then, did I go through all the item cards? Yeah, I think we did. Did we go through? We went through a handful of them. There's a comms specialist. There's a chef who can heal you or reduce the horror if you're both in the kitchen. That's pretty cool. There's hidden weapons, right? The hidden weapons cache. There's some cool stuff here, right? More scientists can show up. Here's a doctor, all kinds of cool stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, but boy, was it brutal to me. It was not nice. I also was having some trouble with my dice not behaving when I was trying to play this. So anyway, I mean, definitely get your hands on it. It's a ton of fun. That is Panic at Station 2891. Final Girl feature film. This is the 10th one I've played, and there's only 10 so far. All we have left after this is going to be the Terror from the Grave. So excited to play, different games on the channel as well. It didn't intend to be just Final Girl. It just happened to be that Season 2 showed up right when I was done with Season 1, and then I was on vacation and out of town for a week, so it kind of feels like all we're doing here is, like there's somebody here. Like I'm just playing Final Girl, but I'm really a big fan of fantasy stuff, so I really would like to play fantasy and horror. So I'd like to play something with a dwarf and a sword and some goblins and dragons and stuff. That's most of my speed most of the time. So we're gonna see what I can find here on the shelves to play once we're done with the Terror from the Grave. All right, we'll see you later. Take care.